Hi students, Miss Walsh here. Today we're going to learn how to perform the chi-square test on the HP prime. You've done it on Excel, which hopefully you found to be easier than doing it the long way by hand, and now it's time for the power of the calculator. So if you go to your apps, you will find an app called Inference. And inference, the definition of inference is making a decision based on evidence and reason. And basically it relates to us because we basically don't have the perfect information, but what we do is we gather some data and we perform some statistics on it, and then from that we come to a reasonable conclusion, right? It's not 100% guarantee. We have an accuracy level, so all of this kind of testing is called inference. By the way, if you don't like the app being where it is, what you can do is if you just hold it, you can move it around, okay? Good. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and what we're going to do is we're going to choose chi-squared, and then you're going to have two choices, and we're going to choose a two ways test rather than a goodness of fit. Okay, we need to put in our data. I'm still using the same two problems for consistency, so let's go in. Before I put it in, you will notice that there's this little go to with an arrow. What that means is when I'm putting and I'm going to put my observed, we're pretending we don't know the expected. And so when I put this in, you see it's going to the right. If you're not happy with that, if you would rather go down first, you can change this. And so now when I click enter, you see that it went down. Don't put the totals in, you don't need to, but then just click over to the 7 and to the 13 and see now he knows. Notice that when you press that enter, he has figured out that you're dealing with two rows only. Very smart, this prime. Okay. You're not going to believe this. That is actually all you have to do. So perhaps you remember our conclusion, our concluding statistic. All you have to do now is you can just press calc. Isn't that amazing? And so you remember that our value was 7.085. We also found this value in Excel. We also had to find the 0.028 value before that, and we had to determine the degrees of freedom. Notice that now both of those values are there. I mentioned that they're important. So there's your p-value. Remember, that means 0.0 move two spaces to the left. There's our p-value, and then there's our degrees of freedom. Okay, that's it. Now you can just take this value, compare it to the critical, and you do exactly the same thing. One more cool little thing, and that is if you need to fill in the expected values, which you very often do, it's part of the process. Look at this. If you press expected, he gives it to you. So I'm referring to him as a boy, no idea why, but basically, perhaps you remember that the expected frequencies are done by this row total and this column total, the row total over the divided by the grand total, and that's exactly what the calculator has been programmed to do. Okay, so it's all there for you. That's it. So you can experiment a little bit, but that's basically chi-squared. So you can, I'm going to do the other one as well, just for those of you that want to, and I suggest that you pause it, but if you got the point, feel free to stop it. I don't like to make these podcasts too long and just go on to the practice. Okay, for those of us that want to stick around, let's do this other example. All right, so what you can do, actually, I'm going to show you a couple more things. If you want to delete, then you can just go to delete, and if you hit number 3 or all, then it clears it. Okay, so let's go back to our example with the whether our null hypothesis being that the type of music people prefer being independent. And so let's put in our values. And once I moved over manually once, he's figured it out. Okay, and good. Just hit calc, and there it is. There's our chi-squared value, and you see that it matches. It is exactly the same thing. Okay, and then there's our expected values. This actually, I just noticed, this would not be a fully valid test because you're not allowed to have any amount of data being less than 5, but we're ignoring that We're just using our calculator, okay? So there you go. And if you want to, you can play around with these functions and go on to practice. Bye.